I know there's been a million commentaries on the Polar Express, but this movie holds a special place in my heart, especially around Christmas time. It's my comfort film, and as someone who grew up Mormon, I've always found that the Polar Express carries echoes of the religious upbringing I had as a kid. Now, my favorite commentary on this movie comes from BrittHartley from No Nonsense Spirituality. Here's a quick clip of her thoughts. Spoiler alert, she's not a big fan of the movie.
The Polar Express
sucks.
And I'm not talking about like as a snooty movie buff, I hate it. And I'm not talking about the CGI. I'm not talking about the dead eyes or Tom Hanks playing all the parts or the annoying kid that you want to punch in the face. I'm talking about how much I hate this movie as a religious deconstruction coach.
Okay, thanks, Britt, but I got to disagree with you here. I love the Polar Express, and here's why. One of the things that immediately pulls me in is the musical score, composed by Alan Silvestri, the same genius behind Back to the Future and Forrest Gump. His score sets the emotional tone perfectly. And of course, I absolutely love Josh Groban's Believe, which is the film's title track. That song alone captures the bittersweet tension between wanting to believe and being old enough to know better. The film actually doesn't name its protagonist, and many of the characters are also left unnamed as well. That choice gives the movie a universal everyman feel. As a male viewer, I can easily project myself into the hero boy. He's rational, curious, analytical, someone who needs evidence before accepting extraordinary claims. In other words, he's exactly the kind of kid who doesn't just believe because someone else told him to. Now, growing up LDS, that element resonates deeply with me. There's pressure to believe from parents, siblings, leaders, and a culture that all tells you what's true before you're old enough to really think for yourself. And like the hero boy, sometimes your own rationality clashes with the stories that you were raised on. The characters voiced by Tom Hanks appear in multiple incarnations throughout the movie, each one symbolizing a different facet of belief. His first and most dominant role is the conductor, the authoritarian guide who ushers the hero boy onto the train. Now, to me, the conductor is very much like a Mormon bishop or even a general authority. He represents institutional authority, the person who tells you where to go, what to do, how to behave, and what the correct path is. He doesn't really ask the boy whether he wants to get on the train. He orders him aboard. This is reminiscent of growing up Mormon, callings you didn't choose, beliefs that you inherited, testimonies that you were expected to bear long before you actually believe them. The conductor functions as the gatekeeper to belief, stern, paternal, and unquestionable. Another of Hank's incarnations is the Hobo, a ghost-like mysterious presence who appears on the train roof. He mocks belief, he tests the hero, and he vanishes just as suddenly as he arrives. The Hobo represents the belief in the supernatural. He's the embodiment of the hero boy's internal questions and doubts. When you're raised LDS or in any theistic environment, you're taught that doubt is dangerous. Yet doubt always finds a way to whisper. The Hobo challenges the hero boy's worldview. He introduces supernatural possibilities, but always in fleeting, ambiguous ways, much like supposed miracles or spiritual promptings or stories about angels and ghosts that circulate in all of religious culture. They're always just out of reach, impossible to verify. As a child trying to make sense of the world, you may wish for solid evidence of your beliefs, but like the Hobo, any evidence tends to evaporate the moment that you look directly at it. Now, when the train reaches the North Pole, the parallels to religious teachings become even stronger. The sprawling city of elves is essentially a child's version of heaven, a place where a divine being lives, surrounded by perfect beings who exist solely to serve and celebrate him. The elves kind of act like angels. Their hierarchical structure mirrors the convoluted, multi-tiered LDS afterlife, where everything revolves around obedience, celebration of the divine, and ritualized ceremony. Santa himself is portrayed as a godlike figure, omniscient, omnibenevolent, and the ultimate arbiter of belief. You know, there's so many attributes that Santa and God share. He sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, children fear disappointing him, rewards come to believers, and doubters risk exclusion. It's religion dressed up in a red suit. Now, what I love is that the hero boy doesn't believe just by default. He isn't convinced by parental pressure or peer excitement. In fact, he's the only character who approaches the world with what philosophers would call a reasonable epistemology. He collects evidence, he tests claims, and he follows curiosity wherever it might lead. He even knows that in real life, the North Pole is an ocean during the summer. He's done his research. This is exactly how many of us grew up Mormon. We believed because we were told, but once we started researching, we discovered disconfirming evidence absolutely everywhere. The hero boy's journey represents a classic hero's journey of faith, except instead of simply converting, he has to confront the unknown, challenge his assumptions, and interpret ambiguous evidence. Josh Groban's belief hits me especially hard, not because I currently believe in the supernatural, but because I remember what it feels like to believe in the supernatural. I remember being a child who trusted without reservation, and this movie taps perfectly into that longing, wanting to return to a simpler worldview, wanting to feel awe and wonder without needing any verification or evidence. But much like the hero boy, I've seen too much disconfirming evidence. There's simply no positive evidence for the supernatural, whether we're talking about Santa, angels, talking donkeys, the tooth fairy, or imaginary gold Bibles. That doesn't make the movie any less meaningful. In fact, it makes it more powerful. The bell in the Polar Express symbolizes a childlike sense of wonder and belief, ringing clearly only for those who still hold onto their faith in magic. For the protagonist, its sound becomes a reminder that the spirit of Christmas endures as long as one chooses to believe. At the end, the hero boy is the only one who can hear the bell. The film tries to portray this as faith rewarded, but the movie itself accidentally reveals the opposite. Our protagonist can hear the bell because he alone has direct evidence. The others can't hear it because they lack evidence. That is a perfect metaphor for a religious experience. People claim to hear a spiritual bell, but unless you have verifiable evidence yourself, why should anyone else believe? And unlike the hero boy, I haven't received any evidence of Santa or God, and so I remain a non-resistant non-believer. Not hostile, just unconvinced. Santa is unfalsifiable, just like some concepts of God. You can't disprove Santa or the tooth fairy, but that's precisely why we shouldn't believe in them. Belief should be based on good evidence, not fairy tales or wishful thinking. One of the film's unintentional commentaries is how children are indoctrinated into belief systems. Parents teach children that Santa is real, even though they know that he's not. They then reward this belief and subtly punish doubt. But eventually, every child realizes that Santa is a myth. God, however, is a myth that many people retain into adulthood simply because our society reinforces it. The hero boy in the Polar Express goes through a literal journey where belief is demanded, tested, and ultimately rewarded. But in the real world, if belief doesn't match reality, if there is no evidence, skeptical kids grow up to be skeptical adults. If you can hit that like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Because ultimately, The Polar Express is a beautifully animated, emotionally rich Christmastime film that doubles as a fascinating exploration of belief, skepticism, and childhood indoctrination. For me, watching it brings back memories of my own Mormon upbringing. The authority figures, the rituals, the supernatural claims, and the expectation to believe without any evidence. But I also see myself as the hero boy, a rational, curious person who wants evidence before belief, who can't simply accept what others tell him, and who ultimately chooses reason over myth. And even though I can't hear the bell, I still love the magic of the story, because the magic isn't in the belief, it's in the journey.
Oh my gosh, you guys, the latest Mormon News Roundup is like literally the best thing ever. Totally, everyone needs to watch it. Seriously, subscribe right now.